What's up, everyone? This is Skylar, also known as SomeJazz1959, coming at you with my very first video of all time. And the thing that prompted this video was the awesome collection of free jazz that I found the other day. And I think that the thing that makes videos about records really interesting is the stories, not just the records themselves. So, I may or may not post videos in the future, but for now, just like and subscribe and comment on this video, and we'll have some good discussions this way. And don't forget to engage with me on Instagram. I am SomeJazz1959. So, today we're talking about an insane collection that I stumbled across kind of randomly, and it ended up being very fruitful. All of the records from this collection that I grabbed are here. I'm actually going back in a little bit to pick up the other half. More on that later. But I did want to just talk about this story because it was really fun. It was really interesting, and it's just a cool thing to be able to share it with other people that are also super into records. So this story all begins with the record in the top right corner, Eddie Gale's Ghetto Music. I was doing one of my periodic Discogs checks on my phone where I just open and see what's new on my want list, even though, as people probably know, you end up seeing the same overpriced records reposted every day by the same sellers and no one's buying them, and it's actually pretty rare that stuff pops up. But it does happen often enough that I do refresh the Discogs page from time to time just to see what's new. So, on July 3rd, I was refreshing that page and I saw a copy of Eddie Gale's Ghetto Music pop up for a price that was seemingly too good to be true. And the seller only had 3 positive feedback. So immediately my mind was like, yeah, there's no way, that's a scam. That has to be a scam. That can't be real, because as those of us that use Discogs all the time know, there's a lot of these people that are popping up and listing stuff they claim it to be near mint, right? And then they list it for a price that's way too low. They don't have any feedback, or maybe they get a friend to buy something for a penny and give them positive feedback, so it looks like they're real sellers. We've all had that experience and seen these fake accounts. But 2 things really led me to believe that this listing might actually be legit. And the first was that the seller had graded the record VG Plus and had graded the sleeve VG, and he'd also left a comment underneath that said there's a price tag on the cover. And so most of these fake sellers don't even bother to write a description in. So I was curious, so I clicked on the seller's feedback, and I saw that the 3 stars were from 2 different people. One person had purchased 2 records from this person, and the other one had purchased 1. And combined, so the first guy had like 55 positive buyer feedbacks, and the second guy had 250. And they were very personable messages to the seller. They were saying, I'm very happy to be this person's first buyer. I am usually skeptical about near mint, but this record was really clean. And then the other one was like, thank you again. And the third one said, thank you so much. And they named the name of the seller. And so at this point I was like, well, it seems like this is either really real or he's doing a really too good of a job of being a scam. So I did what any person willing to take a risk once in a while would do, and I went ahead and purchased the record, and I shot the seller a message saying, hey, I believe that you're a true person, but there's been a lot of scams going around, so can you send pictures of the record to my email, which I put in there. And not even an hour later, I get a message from the seller saying, hi, Skylar, I'm happy to send you some pictures. By the way, I'm in a town that's an hour away from you. And at this point, I was like, okay, this guy is probably a real person. So we exchanged a few emails. I got to know this person a little bit, and I asked him what else he happened to be selling. And he said, well, I've been collecting records for quite a long time, and I'm ready to part with them, so I created this Discogs account. To do so, I will email you the spreadsheet of all of the records that I'm willing to part with. And so a couple hours later, I get the spreadsheet in my email, and it's awesome. There is a bunch of really good stuff, and a lot of stuff that you really don't see too often, which I'll go into some of these in a couple of minutes and show you why you might not see them too often, etc., etc. So this was all on July 3rd, and we made an appointment on July 5th. We couldn't do the 4th for, both of us were kind of busy. But we made an appointment on the 5th for me to go over to this gentleman's house and check it out. And at this point, I was fully trusting the process. Also because he lives in a very reputable place in, a safe-looking house and everything. So at this point, I was like, yeah, it's going to be fine. And it was. I feel like I can trust my intuition pretty well, and I'm glad I did, because I rolled up to the guy's house, and he's out in the yard with a very friendly dog, and he was immediately greeting me with, a glass of water and invited me to come in, and we got to talking, and it turns out that this guy, I never did find out what his career was, but he was an amateur saxophonist who happened to discover free jazz kind of early-ish into his playing career and really just fall in love with it. And he would take all of these different trips to New York City to go and hear all these artists and hit the record stores when he was there. But he was buying all of this stuff that you couldn't find on CD or digitally and then recording it to tape so that he had the tape. So he had about 500 records in that collection. Pretty much all of them are in the VG Plus near mint category because he played them once to record them to tape and then shelved them. He had them all in these custom-made cabinets in his house, and it was cool. So he let me dig through the rest of the collection and see what was there. And it ended up being a really cool experience to meet somebody who was super, super, super passionate about the music and couldn't care less about what pressing he had or what year the vinyl was made or anything. His only priority here was the music, and he pretty much had a story about every one of these musicians that he was on here about how he either saw them live or he was such a big fan of their music, and he could name pretty much everything on his shelf and who was on it and why he liked it, and just knew a ton of information about it, and it was really cool. So I ended up choosing about 30 records, which he was pricing very reasonably for me. Before you ask, the rest of the collection has been spoken for at this point. I just didn't have it in my power to purchase the entire thing, but it is in good hands. So trust me on that one. But I do want to take a couple of minutes to show you some of the stuff that I ended up choosing from this collection and what it is, and some of the stuff that I think is some of the highlights. So I'm gonna start here. I got 3 records by Dennis Gonzalez. Dennis Gonzalez is a Dallas-based trumpet player who became active more so in the 1980s and 1990s throughout the 2000s. So if you haven't heard of him, that might be why, because a lot of people, for no reason in particular, in my opinion, seem to avoid 1980s jazz. There's no reason to avoid it. If you're avoiding it because of the produced sound, then all I'm going to say is you're missing out on some awesome music. And this is some of it. These records are on a label called Silkheart. It's based in Sweden. So as I was saying earlier, you don't always see this kind of music appearing in the United States because a lot of these are European. And Silkheart in particular has become sort of a collectible label. So Namesake is the name of this record. It's a sextet with different iterations of some of the musicians playing on different tracks. I'd say it's somewhere. It's not quite free jazz, but it's not quite hard bop. It's somewhere in that no man's land in the middle, where there's still a sense of groove, but there's so much freedom within that groove. That's one of those Dennis Gonzalez. The one right above it and the one right next to it are also Dennis Gonzalez records as well. Those were definitely highlights of the collection because I never see those. I've been looking for those for quite a while, and I just never see them here in the United States for sale. This is the Composers Workshop Ensemble on Strata East. This is their second record called We've Been Around. Their first one is just the Composers Workshop Ensemble. It's a really interesting record. I played this the other night, and this I like just a lot more. Again, it lives in that sort of no man's land. There's a ton of musicians on this, and it's funny because they don't even list what everybody plays on the back. So I was not expecting to hear a trumpet player on this record because if you go to Discogs, nobody is listed as playing trumpet. But there is one on here. He's just listed as an appearance on Discogs, which is funny, so I didn't know. So that was a nice surprise for me. But again, this is the only pressing of this. It's never been reissued. I don't know why. It's a fantastic album. Really, really thrilled to find that one in there. And the spreadsheet that he sent me had so many records on it that it actually took me 3 times to even notice that one on the spreadsheet. That's just how much stuff was in this collection. Where do we go next? Getting a little bit more into the actual, like, really free and out stuff. Charles Tyler, Live in Europe. Again, these are all just insanely clean, and I was getting just really great prices from this guy. Charles Tyler, Live in Europe. There's a really cool version of Voyage to Jericho on here that's quite a bit more eccentric and out than the version on the album Voyage to Jericho. This is a really, really great band. He's got Ronnie Boykins on bass, Steve Reed on drums, and Melvin Smith on guitar. It's just so much energy and craziness on that record. The 2 Andrew Cyrille records are also really cool. There's a great trumpet player. I play trumpet, if you didn't know, so I'm all about the trumpet players. There's a really great trumpet player on here by the name of Ted Daniel. And Ted Daniel is just another one of those guys who never really became famous or well known. And the gentleman that I purchased this record collection from, he said that he never got to actually see Ted Daniel either. So, even though he'd seen a lot of people. So it just shows maybe a little bit more about how obscure some of this stuff is. But anyways, these are the records. That was the fun story in the way that I found this collection. I'll be going back soon to buy the other half. I've just been pulling a few duplicates off of the shelf of stuff that's that I had that these serve as upgrades to, or stuff that I'm just selling just to make sure that I can break even and go back and get the rest of the record collection. So stay tuned, there is more coming. This is probably the more exciting half, although I don't actually want to say that because both halves are very exciting. So thank you for checking this out. This was a lot of fun. I think I might continue making videos in the future about subjects that I feel are under-discussed. And again, it's all about those connections and about telling stories. There's enough of us that are out there showing off every run-of-the-mill $1,000 Blue Note. I'm not as interested in that anymore at this point in my collecting. I'm interested in stories, connections, really interesting music that's under-discussed. So, thanks very much for checking this out, and hope to see you soon.